it's rolling. Perfect.
You that's been in the weeks, you can of course leave some comments in the section and I'll have on screen. And today I want to be a little bit more active again. And so a little bit later, I'm going to give you the link to this particular broadcast, and you can also come into the broadcast and you can chat to myself and Caroline. Got a very special guest tonight in studio a little bit later. She's backstage already. And I'm talking about Caroline Peters, and what a phenomenal lady. She's one of my favorite ladies on the face of this planet, of course. And you guys can be part of the show big time, like I said. And we're going to be talking about gender-based violence tonight. And we're going to talk about a survivor. We're going to talk about somebody who's so courageous and somebody who's helping other ladies through their own ordeals during this time. It's a very, very sensitive topic. So if you have kids in the vicinity, let's just rather make safe, sure that they are let me rather do this quickly. Make sure that they are finally tucked up in bed and stuff, because we are going to be talking about some sensitive issues tonight. So let me say hello to my good friend, Caroline Peters. Bring her into the stream. Okay, waiting for her to come along there. But you're going to be very inspired by the story of Caroline Peters tonight. So I'll wait for her to come into the stream. Let me quickly just get back onto my own picture. Yep. While I'm waiting for her, I don't know what's happening over there, but I'll wait for her to get herself sorted over there. But if you have questions for Caroline a little bit later, you can pop it into the comment section. If you also just want to make a comment and even want to say hello, like says Anime says, greetings, Pastor Marker, hello to you. And of course, you can encourage one another. Share this with your friends. Of course, this is a very important conversation to be had, and it's all about learning more about gender-based violence. It is 16 days of activism against no violence or against women and children. Let me just see if Caroline is back in. See if I can add it into the stream. I don't know what's happened over there. So bear with me. Technology sometimes happen like that, but let's see. Maybe we'll just go out and come back in the stream. I'll see if we can get you back on in the moment. But like I mentioned, if you have comments, you can leave that now already, and we'll get into the conversation proper. And so tonight it's all about talking about the scheme of Orange On. I've got Orange On, and I know Caroline also, I think, is wearing on. And this is the theme of 16 days, the activism part of that. Let's quickly just show you what I mean. So Orange the World is the theme, and Caroline will tell you a little bit more about that in a moment's time. And let me tell you more about it in the meanwhile. So you've been wondering maybe what is the reason for the color orange. So it is designated by the UN Secretary General's Unite to End Violence Against Women campaign as a bright and optimistic color. Orange represents a future free from violence against women and girls. If you or somebody you know is experiencing family violence, help is available. So we'll talk about that in the next moment or so. So I'm still waiting for Caroline to come on. I don't know. We've done all the tests, and so earlier it worked fine. But in the meanwhile, you can pop me a comment in the comment section, and I can just flash that on the screen for now. Let me know that you are tuned in, and of course, we are live on Facebook as well as on YouTube, and this is a very, very important topic, and we're going to be telling the story about Caroline. I first chatted to Caroline many years ago. It was on a sports program, and then I got to hear about her story, but I actually want her to tell it. I'm not too sure in regards to just where Caroline is at the moment. So I'm waiting for her to come back on stream. She's probably trying frantically to get hold of me. Okay, I see she's coming back on. Let's see. Let's see. And there she is. Well, the star of the show, popping in late as is, of course, your one. That's how I know you. But good to have you, Caroline, and can say hello to the viewers already. There's quite a few people tuned in, and tonight we're gonna tell a story of courage, of course. And I'm very, very glad to be able to talk to you. You know, I love you very much. We come along a long way. You're one of my favorite people on the planet, and it's sometimes a difficult story for me to hear as well. But you've told the story before, and I'm going to encourage every lady to share this broadcast with somebody. It's important that this story gets out, that we get to hear, in your case, horrific gang rape. And it's not easy to stomach this story, but it's a story with positives in there as well. And Caroline, maybe we want to start from the beginning, and you can tell your story. I want you to tell your story. I
Mm,
don't actually want to tell it for two people while you are
mm.
here. But let's hear about Caroline Peters. Actually, I don't know what to call you these days. Is it Caroline Peters, Paulse,
Peters,
advocate?
Caroline Peters is fine. Caroline Peters, Paulson. Okay. Hi, good evening, everybody, and thank you, Marco. It's always such a joy and honor for me to be alongside you. And you're also one of my favorite people. So yes, thank you. And thank you once again. And I think, Marco, I've told the story hundreds of times and on different platforms and different audiences and that. And so many times you feel like, I'm an overcomer. And let me say from the start that I'm victorious and I'm an overcomer in Christ. Today God showed up again just so mightily for me again. But anyway, Marco, but just to and I want to encourage, and the reason why I tell my story is because me telling my story gives other women permission to
Yes.
tell theirs. So when we share our story, I share my story because it's a story of hope, it's a story of courage, it's a story of overcoming. But if I can go right back, so 3 months, July the 20th, 1980. I mean, everybody know, well, they know how old I am. But July the 20th, 1980, 3 months, July, August, 3 months before my 16th birthday, I was gang raped at Nantes Park. And and at the time, Marcus, when this happened to me, I wanted to die. All I wanted to do was die. I didn't know how I was going to face school, how I was going to face my friends. I remember going into hospital, coming home from hospital, and my mother telling me after 2 weeks, no, but you have to get up. You have to get up. And you know what was the words, Marco? She said to me, "You ate Peters," and almost like we strong people, and we don't just give up. We fight. And then of course I had to get up out of bed. And needless to say, at the time there was no such thing, Marco, as counseling. The sensitivity around the issue was not like it was before. Everybody look at you as if you've done something wrong, not like you had some violent thing just happened to you, but it felt almost as if I did something wrong. The victim blaming, which still continues until today, happened to me on a huge scale because, of course, you're 15. What were you doing walking across the field? We told you not to walk over that field. Now I want to tell you, 15-year-olds more than likely don't listen to parents.
Mhm.
And I remember on that day, my mother said to me, I must be home quickly because it was my time to wash up. It was my turn. And often I say that not hello enemy, and often I say when you're 15, when you're 15, you don't listen to your parents. You know, it's normal. But for years I struggled with the guilt. What if I did? What if I listened to my parents? What if I didn't go and walk with my friend over the field? Wow, how different would life have been? And you know, Marco, so even now, often we don't, victims are not victims feel already the shame, the guilt, and all that. But that stands out for me now as I'm sharing that guilt. And I want to say, when someone shares with you, you know, um tell them, I hear you, I see you, I believe you, you safe with me. Hmm? For many years I lived with, what if I did listen to my mother and father? I lived with almost survivor's guilt. Yeah. um and things changed for me at that stage. Everything went downhill in my life from there, from a 15-year-old that was carefree, um knew nothing, never had sexual
Mm.
encounters, and suddenly you are so violently violated. I have scars on my arm, you know, on my body, and it changed my life completely, you know. Um, and I want to say, you know, when all this took place, Marco, I then became, you know, and I'm sharing this because, yeah, I became promiscuous. I went through a part of drugs and alcohol. I and you know, much later in my life, now that I know what a rape survivor experience, and all that, it's a classical textbook case, and I didn't
Sure.
know that at the time. Yeah. So when I was running around, you know, one of the things, running around um with gangs, with bear, I mean, really not being who, yeah. If I think, and just today I shared a bit about that, about the running with gangs, because one of the new projects I do is that women in conflict with the law, or women in contact with the law, and running with gangs, and how women are drawn into gangs, and that I explain that. But often we also do not realize that as rape survivors, if there's someone, and I don't know who needs to hear this, Marco, but if there's a young girl in your family that's been raped, she needs you to believe her. She needs you to show her love. She needs you to show her that empathy. Because if I look back now, I felt like a leper in my own home. Hmm? And what did I do? I went outside the house. I went to look and seek for love outside the home. I hung out with
I wanted
gangs that
I wanted
powerful.
to just
Yeah.
quickly go back, just slightly back, and it's often, even when I've done a lot of these interviews and I've spoken to other people as well, I want to get to the victim shaming, man. I want to get to a point where a lot of the victims, especially the ladies, and these days when it gets to our children as well, boys and girls, that we tend not
Yes.
to believe the victim, that we
Mm,
don't give them an ear, we don't listen
yes.
to them when they say what has
Yes.
happened to them.
Yeah.
And often it's people closest to them, and then, or we know
Yes.
maybe the person that's being now pointed out as the perpetrator, and then we don't want to believe that. We
Mm,
believe the perpetrator above the victim, and I
yes.
want us to go back there because I
Yes.
want you to tell of how you felt, especially in that when maybe you didn't get the ear that you wanted, and not just you but others.
Mm,
And what does it do to a person when something horrific has happened to them? You deal with a lot of ladies every day, and we'll get into the program that you've launched today, also to help ladies along. But what happens to a person when they go through a horrific ordeal, and you're not getting the ear that you need, and people's not really hearing you.
then you stop telling. So that's why I'm saying, often I say to people, so when someone come and disclose to you, someone tell you, I've been raped, I'm being abused in my house, believe her. huh? Believe her. um Tell her, I believe you, because remember, she has been told already by the perpetrator, or he or she has been told by the perpetrator, no one is going to believe you. Marco, I just want to go and tell you this. Last week, SAP's figures was released for rape. Huh? Remember, SAP's quarterly, they release statistics, and this is statistics for the Western Cape.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
of and rape and place of occurrence. Okay, this was 22nd of November 2021. So it's the quarter, yeah, prior to that. So 455 rapes was perpetrated in residences of the perpetrator or the victim. It includes residents known by the victim or perpetrator, for example, in a family's home, a friend's home, a neighbor's home. Only 95 rapes occurred in public places like streets, open fields, recreational parks, beach, parking area, abandoned building. Okay, so I want to say to you, Marco, that the enemies is not out there. The boogeyman is not out there. It
yeah.
is the perpetrator is known to the girl or the boy, or women
To the
is
yeah, yeah,
known to the victim. Okay. And especially we've seen this during lockdown, Marco. We've seen how sexual violence has escalated in the homes. Because
yeah,
remember, children were restricted to the home, women were restricted to the homes. So the perpetrators, I mean, for me, was within the house. So how do we? So when someone discloses to you, it is believe her or believe him,
yeah.
because it's taken up. Do you know how much courage it is? Huh? And so yes, I've told my story 1,000 times, but every time I tell my story, I feel vulnerable. I feel like, sure, but someone is listening that haven't heard the story before. And how am I going to, I'm over that, but it makes one feel vulnerable. You make yourself vulnerable when you're sharing your story. So when someone share their story, they are making themselves vulnerable to you. Believe him or her. We've seen in some instances, Marco, when children disclose, when women disclose, the shame that the family puts on them. We know that in many families, it's the
Mm,
breadwinners, that's
yeah,
the perpetrators. So mothers keep quiet. Huh? Families keeps quiet. Families hold. There's this huge silence. So that's why, I mean, if you look at my t-shirt, silence hides violence. I've got this in all colors, and I'm wearing orange because it's 16 days. But I want to
yeah.
say to you, it is for me, it's a shame. And Marco, it happens in all homes. It happens in all
Mm,
homes. It happens
yeah.
across the board.
I think I just want to cotton on to that, and often the audience that I have daily, that I speak to, it's probably even worse within the church. It's even worse within the body because we don't want to talk about it. There's a stigma
Mm,
attached, and
mm,
it's the people that you regard highly sometimes that's the
mm.
perpetrators,
Yes,
and
yes.
silence hides violence, and
Violence.
the and how for how long is this going to be the case where we don't
Yes.
speak up? You often would say you see something or say
Say
something,
something.
and
Yes.
often it is the silence, and what I want to cotton onto is that the shame is
Mm,
hidden in
mm.
silence, and I want to speak to the ladies particularly tonight that you don't have to hide your shame. You have done nothing wrong,
Yes.
and often it
Yes.
is where we cover up for the men,
Mm,
and let's be honest here, that the majority of the perpetrators are men, and we got to call it like it is, and we
yes.
can't hide from this fact, and
Yeah.
we need to raise up better boys to become men as well,
Mm,
because half the battle is
mm,
fought up here. It's what gets
mm,
put into you, and we see the
mm,
result, the fruit of what gets put
mm.
into you, how it comes out.
Yes.
And so I want to speak to somebody tonight, and maybe you can speak into that, Caroline, as well, is that we should
Yes.
not feel ashamed. If you are
No,
the one that is the victim, don't feel ashamed. You have done absolutely nothing
not.
wrong.
That's
Caroline
true.
speaks of being 15 years old and being carefree, and something that's been taken away from her,
Mm,
that had to be rebuilt, and is still
mm.
probably in the process of being built up after all of
Always.
these years.
Yes.
But you've managed to overcome a lot of it, but you're still dealing with a
Yeah.
lot of things. Just
Yes.
take us through that. A lot of people may not understand what the victim goes through, and sometimes we gloss over things, and sometimes simply we hear so much of it that we are sometimes dead to what the reality is, in terms
Mm,
of the crimes being perpetrated. It just seems to be another crime. We see it in the
mm,
newspapers, we read it,
mm.
wherever else we read it, we see on TV, and all of a sudden we're at that point where, ugh, it's another
Marco,
one.
we have become so desensitized
Yeah,
to crime because it's just another one. If we look at femicide, so what is femicide? The killing of women at the hands of men. Um, and in South Africa, we say every 30 hours a woman is killed in South Africa. And it's a horrific statistic. One of the global themes for this year, Marco, is about femicide is because femicide across the world has escalated. In one
sure.
country, 50% of the murders is femicide. And that's horrific. Huh? In Honduras, I think I saw
Yeah,
last night. So it's a global thing. It's a pandemic. We've seen it, but just just speaking about the victim. I mean, I have so many times I have to convince victims it is not your fault. I had a woman sitting in my office about just more than 2 months ago, and she says to me, "No, man, it's not him. It's me. It's something I've done wrong."
yeah,
He's and just the way she was sitting with a blue eye, and she's telling me maybe if she did something different, maybe and still, and she says to me, "Oh, Caroline, and I didn't want to come to you. My boss made me come because he says I have a problem, I need to speak to you." And so um but all I thought was, just the so you must remember, when someone is broken down, there's no self-confidence. Her agency is gone. She's got nothing left. And then for us that run support groups, that does intervention work, we come alongside her, and we can't just go in there and say, "No, you're wrong. He was wrong," and you have to do it in a different manner. But so for many victims, the shame that goes with that, yeah? I remember I changed schools at the time, Marco. I stopped going to Bridgetown High, and my parents put me into the School of Commerce at the time, the Cape Town School of Commerce, because it felt like me that everybody was talking about me, and so just that. So my whole life, then changed completely. I changed friends, I changed so everything. So for the victim, it's not just the act of that day of July 20, 1980. Many years later, I still don't walk by myself. Many years later, I still don't sleep in the dark. Many years later, my bathroom light still needs to burn while I sleep at night.
sure.
I still, when I see an article that reads gang rape, sometimes your stomach just turn and you continue to read. And sometimes I don't even want to see that article. Marco, I went around the country when I worked for 1,000 women. We collected stories of women, and one of the things is that I collected so many stories. I allowed women to tell their stories, share their stories. So I would share, they would share, write their stories. Marco, I sit with stories and stories of women. I never read them. I choose not to read them because I couldn't deal with it. Yeah. But I wanted, I facilitated the process for them to tell their stories.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So while you're watching us at the moment, I would encourage you to share the story far and wide, whether you on YouTube, on Facebook, on other different Facebook platforms. Go and share the story. I think that for too long we've hidden these type of stories. Maybe not comfortable to talk about it, not easy to
mm,
mention, and
mm,
especially when it's close to home, where it often
mm,
happens.
mm.
We don't want to talk about it. The neighbors mustn't know. The church mustn't know. Nobody must know.
Yeah.
And that is where the power lies for the perpetrator.
Mm,
That you won't speak up,
mm.
and
Yes.
it's time to speak up. We need to
Yes.
speak up, and as men, we also need to speak up. I'm speaking to the men as well.
Yes.
Now, I think we need to do a better job of protecting our own. And when I talk about our own, it's not just within our households, but within our
Mm,
society as well. And it starts with our conversations. I think, Caroline, is how
yes.
we objectify and how we
Mm-hmm.
treat, firstly in the home, and then we treat the people around us, what we
Mm,
do say behind their backs and about them, and that's
mm,
where the seed starts.
mm,
And when you get to a point where you maybe
mm.
see something, ah, it's just you didn't mean it, and we often don't even think it could be your own daughter, could be your wife,
Yes.
could be your mother,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
have to do a lot better. I also wanted to ask you though, going back to your incident, with the gang rape, and I know it's not always easy for you to remember and talk about it. Were they ever caught, and did you ever receive what we call justice in that sense?
No. No, I
Nothing.
did not, Marco. No, I did not.
So that
In
that
fact,
that book you could never close. You can never
I,
close
I,
that.
I'll tell you what happened. So many years later, I am not many, a few years later, I married. I I go to town center. I live in Strandfontein at the time. My daughters are small. My daughters are big now. And I go to town center. Pickaway was the only shop, the biggest shoppings there. And then my daughters are now, yes, my daughters are now 39 and 36, and they were small at the time. I think they were like 3 and or 4 and 1, like that. And Marco, I go to town center, and outside Pickaway is one of the rapists.
Sure.
And I ended up, from that visit to Pickaway, I ended up in Kenilworth Clinic a month later with
Sure.
a breakdown. You know what some people would call a breakdown. Completely depressed, numb. I went. I couldn't talk. I turned around. My then husband. We went home, and I said nothing, but I just cried and cried and cried.
Sure.
And by the Monday, I was at the doctor. By the Wednesday, I was at the psychiatrist. And so now I'm 22 at the time. And all I could see was this man's face, many years later. And I think the next week I was admitted to Kenilworth Clinic. Yeah. So that happened at the age of 22 to me. Yeah. So that was my first encounter again with one of the rapists. Yeah. And clearly, you know how the guys, the brokers, the walkers shout. Hmm?
Mm.
And that same voice, I will never forget the face, and it was as if someone kicked me in my gut that day, encountering this. And this is now, what, 7 years later. Hmm? And it just all came flooding back, Marco. And I had a breakdown, ended up in Kenilworth Clinic, yeah. And I think that's when my healing with it started. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to have confrontation. Otherwise, it
Yes.
would have been just something that you would put to the wayside and try to cope as best you
Yes.
could until you had
Yes.
that confrontation and realize
Yes.
that you need to work through the
Yes.
issues, of course, that
Yes.
affected you. And I can only imagine. For me, this is a very difficult conversation, from a man's side. I can
Mm.
never quite understand what that violation would mean to you as a woman.
Mm.
um, I can't even empathize, but I
Mm.
can try to support as best I can, not just to you but to others,
Mm.
and try to avoid others to go through your experience. But I also want to get into an aspect of your healing, and you said that was part of where it started, but there's other aspects to it. You're quite a courageous woman, courageous Caroline, as I would call you. I want to put a picture on the screen, very quickly, something that then change a little bit later. I want to do this. You can start telling us the story of um, what this picture meant, and I don't think it's insignificant because you see Nantes on there, see the park. You started a running club and ended not being
Yes.
in the running club anymore. But
Yes.
let's take us through that experience. That whole park becomes
Sure.
significant of where this
Yes.
incident happened. I want to put
Mm.
that picture back on. Tell us the emotion when you look
Mm.
at this picture. What does it mean to you?
You see, I was standing there next to the name Nantes. You know, Marco, it was about claiming a space back. So when Nantes was when I 2011, I was very overweight. You know my journey with my weight loss journey. And 2011, I started on that weight loss journey. 2013, I ran comrades. Um, 2014, I founded Nantes. I started Nantes here in Bridgetown. Nantes Athletic Club. It still exists. I'm no longer part of the club. Sad story for me, but yes, I'm okay with that now. That also was God, goodness God. Anyway, so when I look at that picture, it says it says to me, I've overcome. Hmm? I've overcome Nantes. You see where that people are walking. You see those
Mm-hmm.
trees there, Marco. Huh?
Yeah,
And that trees there is where that gang rape happened. Just
sure.
about 50 meters away from that trees, more towards the riverside. Yeah. So this is the same field where it happened. It is about Marco. I still walk there daily. I don't run anymore. I walk now, but I walk there daily. And it's claiming back a space. It's saying that I will not be defined. Nantes will not be a bad space. I will, but
Say
it
that.
took me
Say
many,
that.
many
Say that
years.
again. Say that again. You are doing what? And I think
Nantes, yes,
when we when we
claiming the
when we
space.
yeah, when we go through experiences, you have to claim back your space because somebody has
Yes,
taken something away from you. They've
yes,
violated a
yes,
space from you.
yes, yeah.
I can maybe only give a bit of an account of when in a space of a week, going to work and coming back from work. I think there were about 5 occasions in that week, in that 7 day week, where they tried to rob me. Even at a
Mm,
point, at gunpoint in that week. But it does something to you when I drive down that road. I'm not saying I'm fearful, but those
mm,
memories don't go
yes,
away.
I don't.
And I keep on looking around when I drive there, and I'm
Mm,
thinking,
mm,
I remember this road. For a while, I avoided it, but I thought I
yes,
gotta go back there
you
because
have to.
otherwise, I'm never gonna conquer.
Mm,
And maybe it doesn't speak into anything that you've gone through and
yeah,
victims that's had more
but still,
horrific, but it just
but
gives me a
trauma is
glimpse of
trauma. Trauma is
yeah,
trauma, Marco. Your trauma isn't any less than mine. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there where I'm standing. So when I where I stay, when I used to drive past Nantes, I didn't look there. I used to drive straight and don't turn there. For years and years and years and years. So when the city built up Nantes Park, spent 20 odd million to, I think, 28 million to develop the park. While it was happening, I said to my daughter, I'm going back to the park and I'm going to claim back the space. And that's how Nantes Athletic Club was born there. And
Yeah.
just going there with a sister army, going there with the troops, just and now it's me and my dogs that walk that field daily with a neighbor. So every day you'll still find me, not every day. I try to walk every day, Marco, but most days you'll find me walking the dogs.
But
And we
I
go to
must say,
Nantes.
I must say that I must say that you've inspired me as well. Whenever I go on my walk or jogs or runs and it gets
Yes.
tough, and I think to myself, man, I don't list for this. I think of Caroline Peters had once told me the story about going to the common. What was it?
Yes.
And you couldn't even go 2 kilometers at one stage. Took you a while, but maybe you'll tell the story just after I'm going to make my point. But I think that for a lot of us, when we want to accomplish something, and I want to talk about why I mentioned the story, is that we've got to literally put one foot in front of the other. And
Yes.
you've obviously had to struggle with a lot of your own issues, where there's been
Mm.
body issues, where there's self-confidence, and
Yes.
you so very easily talk about, oh, I've completed the comrades and this and that and the other. I want you to tell people the story of what it took mentally to
Sure.
get to that stage, to overcome.
Yeah.
I've themed tonight as overcomer, and I want to tell the
Mm.
story of you overcoming. What goes through your mind when you need to accomplish something, especially when the odds are against you, Caroline, when you can't go 2 kilometers in the start of trying to go into a fitness journey, but you end up running the comrades? I want you to
Mm.
inspire somebody out there um, that's about to give up and thinking that life is not worth living. And with the odds that you've faced, the things that you've gone through, maybe you could just be a lifeline to somebody tonight.
Yeah. So 2011, at the weight of 116 kilograms, and my doctor puts me on diabetic medication, on metformin. Those that's diabetic no metformin. And I change, and doc sends me home and says, but one of the things that stood out for me, my mother died at the age of 55. And I was very aware that my daughters do not have a father, they have an absent father. And so I'm everything that my children have. And my daughter's pregnant. I am about to become a grandmother again. And we prayed for this child. In fact, she struggled with, this was the fourth pregnancy. And so, we prayed into for this. And
Mm,
Alyssa was about to be born. And I decided, and I also don't want to be a grandmother that sits on the couch. They fit omas wat ons ken wat daar sit, and you can't even run after your grandchildren. And all I thought was, no ways. I don't want to die at 55. I mean, God knows, the Lord knows when
yeah,
our
yeah,
time's up.
yeah,
But
yeah.
we don't need to out that along. Yeah. And so, Marco, I decide this is it. Goodness, Marco, I used to sit and wait for lunchtime with my food covered, my salad and my food. I'm hungry. I want to cry. you know, and you have your porridge or whatever you have. So now I started eating properly, 3 meals a day, and my snacks in a little bucky, and this is how I go to work. From 12 o'clock, I would get up from my desk, go to the kitchen. Okay, the food is still there, and I come back and I sit behind my desk because now I must wait for 1 o'clock. Because remember, you need to become disciplined now. There's
Yeah,
three
yeah,
meals a day, there's two snacks, and there's a walk in the morning and at night. And I remember, I come home from the Rondebosch Common, which is 2.5 kilometer. Took forever to do that. And I sit in front of the TV and I sit and I couldn't move because I walked 2.5 kilometers.
yeah,
That's not a lot. Now that we runners, we know that. But that was it. But I had to continue. I had to continue. My goal was being a fit mother, a fit
yeah,
grandmother,
man.
being able to run after my grandchildren. And that was my goal. And I had to see it through. And remember, I always thought that someone watches you, your daughters watch you, your children watch you. You have a younger person watching you. And
Yeah,
often we say, don't do as I do as I say. No, we need to practice what we preach. Yeah. And
yeah,
so, and so it continued. And then I had this huge chart up in my office. And so I started from 116 Ks, and every month I had a target. And so I would plot it so everybody, and I always say to people, make it public. Don't say, no, I don't want anyone to know. Let people know, because it will hold you accountable. Yeah.
Mm.
So people will say, oh, you said, so then you have another reason why you need to stick to your goal. I made it public. I put it on my wall. Everybody could see this was where I was at. I went for swimming lessons with my grandson at the time, and there off I go at my age with my grandson going for swimming lessons. But all that was plotted in my year plan. Yeah. So I want to encourage women out there and say, you know what? It's not too late. And little things, baby steps, Marco, like you said, one foot in front of the other. And if you
Yeah.
cannot change everything today, don't change everything. Change white sugar to brown sugar. Drop half a sugar. Change white bread to brown bread. Change. And sometimes it's those little things. And slowly but surely, and sometimes we want to do it fast. We didn't get big overnight. We're not going to get small overnight
Yeah. Yeah.
either.
Yeah. But I'm asking you this on purpose in terms of transformation and from that horrific experience to having to live life still, right? And we hear
Mm.
that you are a mother, you are a grandmother, and I want to know how your experience has affected your relationships, even with your daughters or with men in general. Um, and where do you find yourself now?
Sure, Marco, it's difficult. I'm a hard wife. I'm not an easy woman, because I think of my previous of what's happened to me in life. I think I had to toughen up. I had to and you know what is what I struggle with at times, is to be is to be the so I give a lot of love, I do a lot of things, I edify my husband, but I do, and I want to say it's a challenge for me to be the wife that I don't even know what to call it, Marco, but how do I
To be submissive
yes,
sometimes, huh?
yes,
Don't even want to say it. You just want to keep it so on
I
the
don't
down
know.
low. But you're a very
Yes, yes,
assertive woman.
yes,
But
I am.
I suppose you had to be, and I
And
suppose
I
that
still have to be in the work that I do, Marco,
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
Monday
yeah.
morning off I go. There's a man that killed his wife in Manenberg. I'm going to oppose bail in Athlone Magistrates Court. And here I am coming, Caroline coming. And we go to the prosecutor's office. Here's a letter, these organizations, and I'm loud, and so sometimes I have to almost and then take off that hat. And now tonight today when I come home, I'm Gerald's wife. Yeah, I'm Gerald's partner. There's my children, and I want to say to you also, because of my experience in the past, I mother different, and my daughter always say, "Mommy, why don't you just have chips put under our skins? Then you will know where we are at all times." I'm serious when I come to it, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
But Zoe is 23
yeah,
now. In our house, she's not married. She's still studying. So she still drives with the location on the phone. Yeah. So when she goes out, her location must be on the phone. You know, and it's also the
mm,
experience of the
mm,
work that I do, Marco. And I often say to her, I trust you complicitly, my child. I know what I've invested in her, and I
yeah,
know who my child is, but I'm afraid of my children's safety. And it becomes paranoia at times because of the work that I do.
yeah. Your experience for the good as well, and you are doing that. And people might be asking, so what are you talking about? What is Caroline doing on a daily basis? And earlier, before I struggled to get you on, I was showing people about the 16 days of activism that is currently undergo. Um, Maybe we'll talk into that, but also I want you to talk into what you do daily, and especially what happened today, something exciting that was launched as well.
Oh,
But I want to just quickly want to put on this picture, and you can maybe help to inform people why are we wearing orange tonight? I've changed the backdrop to be
yes,
orange as well.
yes.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
this. I'm talking
Orange
about
the
orange the
world.
world.
Yes.
Why
Okay.
is that so important, Caroline?
Okay, so orange is the color for UN women. So that is a color that's been chosen a few years ago. So orange the world, meaning, so you'll see now during, orange is the color designated by the UN, yes, to end violence against women, and it's a big campaign. So, and it's a global campaign. So globally during 16 days, and in fact for years, Marco, that's why you'll see me in my orange t-shirts, on the 25th of each month, we wear orange. So it's a symbol of to end violence against women. So orange is the color that
Yeah,
was chosen by United Nations and the UN Secretary General to, so that is why we do orange. And it is, and I also want to tell you, so 16 days of activism is a global event as well. And this year we're celebrating 30 years of 16 days of activism. Yeah. So yeah, but
yeah.
you had another question,
We speak
Marco.
about that 16 days, and it irritates me a little bit. But yeah, yeah, yeah. Just in terms of that 16 days, I think we need to change it and make it a
I
365
know,
days of
365.
no violence
Yes.
against women and children. I think that's what we need to do. We have this short space of having great awareness, but I often ask the
Mm.
question. Even yesterday, I asked the question of another lady dealing with GBV: how effective is it? Yes, there's a great spotlight, and it does get a little bit of attention, but I think
Mm.
to start to eradicate this
I'm
scourge,
so
to
tired of
really
this.
be more
Yes, I'm
effective, we
so
need to
tired.
obviously
I'm
make
so
it.
tired, Marco. I
Yeah,
mean, every year,
yeah,
16 days. I've been in the sector for almost 30 years, and every year with 16 days, this is what we do. I know you have me on more often than you know, but for today, I've already had 3 interviews. Yeah, and so every day during 16 days, everybody come, everybody have programs at work. Um, I'm speaking at the city of Cape Town at their women's 16 days, and so many people come and ask you to speak. I'm speaking at, I don't even know which company tomorrow online, but anyway, so it's about that. I enjoy the platform because that is what I like to do, raise awareness around gender-based violence. However, we must do this 365 days a year, not, and if we serious, Marco, remember our president said that GBV is the second pandemic in our country. And I will say this again, if it is a pandemic in our country, more needs to happen. As despite political commitments, obligations under international law, calls to action from feminists, and pressure from international bodies, government is simply not doing enough. To end gender based violence and femicide, and adequately prioritizing this this scourge of GBV, Marco. We've seen when COVID is a pandemic, we've seen the multi-sectoral responses to fight COVID. And if we do the same, just think, because this is also a pandemic, just think we give it the attention and the resources to end violence against women. So that's why I'm saying government is not doing enough to end gender-based violence. So I'm going to sit here, and God willing, maybe in 10, 15, 20 years time, my daughters are going to sit here doing this with you, Marco. And or the
so
next
that means I'm
generation.
gonna I'm gonna be here in 30 years time. Okay.
Amen. So yeah, you know, and so I'm saying it's almost government is not doing enough. But it's not just government. I always say to end gender based violence, it's not just government, It's going to take me and you and the
Mm.
neighbor. When we speak about disrupting gender based violence, what does it mean? I often say to people that live in communities, when you hear there's a noise next door, what do? You say, shh, it's not our business, man. Keep quiet. Leave them. Yeah. If they want to fight, it's their fight. Send your child to go ask for sugar next door.
Yeah.
Disrupt the violence. Huh?
Yeah.
Tell your child to go knock then or say the ball went over the fence. Right? Do something. See something, say something, see something, do something.
Yeah.
Disrupt the violence. Do not turn a blind eye. Hmm? Just
But also,
imagine your neighbor must know she can run into you, she's going to be safe there. How much safe our
of course,
communities can be. Huh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's again that silence hides
Hi.
violence that you're wearing on your t-shirt there. But
Yeah.
also today is a great day for you. I know you were very excited about today.
Mhm.
Tell us more. Tell us more about this launch. And I know you're advocating for a lot of women. And you spoke earlier also about opposing bail a lot of times in cases at the court. But today was something special for you. And
Yes.
I know you want to inform us more about it.
Yes, yes. So yes. So I was saying the other day at court. So for now, my days from tomorrow at court would be slightly different. So one of the things we do as an organization, firstly, is to do court support. We support women through the justice system. We know how daunting that would be. So we know the processes. We will speak to the IOs, to the investigating officer, the prosecutor, inform the family what is the next process, what is the next step, accompany you to whatever consultations and those things. So that's what we do for families and women that has experienced sexual violence and femicide, where the woman is murdered. We'll support the family. So today we launched another program which is called women in conflict with the law. So it's interventions on non-custodial measures for women in conflict with the law. So we launched a pilot project in Athlone, and it's going to run from Athlone Magistrates Court. And I just want to tell you quickly, Marco, Athlone Magistrates Court has got the highest number of female offenders in the country. In the country. And if
So,
you know, Athlone Magistrate Court serves the Cape Flats. And what does that tell you? Drugs, drugs, drugs. If you look at our crime and how the statistics is made up, a lot of drug crime, a lot of economic crime, there's violent crime also there in the mix. However, so the program we launched today, Marco, speaks to. So we took, I think it took us about 14 months. I'm part of the program for 14 months, but it's been ongoing for about 2 years. So there was research done about women in custody, and why, when we look at, let me just tell you, like in the Jeremiah writer's case, eh? The women were the breadwinner in the family. And so when she was incarcerated, Marco, that family fell apart. Yeah. And 3 years later, she was set free. When she came back from prison, there was no family unit. Remember, it was her husband, boyfriend who killed the child, and she sat for 3 years. That's another story I'd really like to speak about one day, but the semantics of that matter. But anyway, so when she came back home, Marco, there was no family structure. They were worse off than when she went to prison. They were poorer than they were. So what the handbook that we developed was so now from the 1st of December tomorrow at Athlone Magistrates Court, they will tell me, okay, so there's two cases for women in the courts tomorrow, let's say court S and that. I will make sure that we're going to map, so who the offender is that comes into court, what is she there for, what is her background, do a short assessment on her. Can we keep her out of prison? So is there is she eligible to apply for non-custodial measures, for interventions? Yeah. Can we do interventions? What alternative is there? So we're mapping, we've sat with magistrates, we've sat with the prosecutors, we've sat with Department of Correctional Services. You know, Marco, what stood out for me in my meeting last week with the magistrates was that she says to me, Caroline, often you don't want to sentence women to prison, to direct imprisonment. But where else do you send her? We don't have rehabs to send her. Marco, the waiting list for rehabs currently for government rehabs is 3 years. So
Sure.
what do you do with a perpetrator that comes in there for the third time stealing? Because there's also prescribed, magistrates are prescribed by law, this and that, and there's processes. So Afisa Muhammad is the head of the magistrates at Weinberg, and I met with her and another judge, Clive Erasmus, and they are of the opinion many women don't have to go to prison. There can be alternatives. So I'm very excited because, in many matters, women's pathways to prison are different than men. And yes, we do get women that's violent, women that's not going to qualify for this program. There's a handbook that we've developed over a year that's a guideline for the women that will be able to this. So one of the matters that was just cleared in court today was a woman that was unknowingly asked by a guy to drop drugs at another person. And after
Sure.
lots of intervention, going back, women are used, young women are used, Marco, like that. And so today,
Yeah.
the charges were withdrawn against her, you know? So that was
Sure.
our first victory with this program today. But
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of diligence. It's going to take a lot of almost, but you know, God prepared me for this, man. Yo, this God is so coy, man. You know,
Yeah.
when I think of where of how God prepared me for this, Marco, because and I also want to tell you, it's groundbreaking. It's a United Nations program, Callas Foundation, which I'm the founder and executive director of, is the civil society consultant to this. The other departments is Department of Justice, the National Prosecuting Authority, Correctional Service, Legal Aid South Africa, and the judiciary. And there we are, Callas Foundation being the civil society consultant to UN Women on this program. So we're very, very excited, Marco.
You are a story that says that God can turn any situation around, that He can use anything and anybody. And when we look at your story and what you've told us up until now, it's a horrendous story. It's a story that a lot of times it turns out differently. It's got different stories for a lot of other women, other victims, where they cannot maybe cope as well as you did, and even become a champion for those who are victims in this time. And we're almost running out of time very, very quickly, but I want you to speak to somebody now. I want you to encourage somebody that's watching now and that will be watching or listening later as well about going through something horrendous, being the victim of rape, or whatever it is, gender based violence. I think that you need to give them a bit of hope, just to tell them what
Mhm.
can happen
Mhm.
and how they can get
Yes.
through what they need. Your
Mhm.
story is a story of what can be, and that's what's still enveloping and it's unfolding. Um,
Mhm.
so tell them. I want you to encourage
Okay.
somebody now.
So yes, I'm not sure who this is, but I want you to know that as a 15-year-old, when my life seemed like I wanted to die, when it felt like I had nothing left to give to nobody, when I got married at the age of 20, a month before my 21st birthday. I was married at 21 with two children. I was divorced. I then got divorced. I lived a life that was not from God. I lived a promiscuous life with drugs, with alcohol. And then God came along much later in my life. But I want to encourage you um, that we serve a God, we serve an amazing, awesome God. And this God, and many years ago when my sister told me she was serving the Lord for years, I wasn't serving the Lord. And she said to me, Caroline, always remember, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the other things will be added onto you. And when she said that to me, it didn't make sense, you know.
Mm.
And she said to me, just take one step. And then I said, no, man, I still want to smoke. I still want to drink. She says, even that's okay. If you still want to smoke and drink. And, you know, I never knew what she meant when she said that to me. When she said, no, just give your heart to the Lord, man. God changes everything. And when I did that, and for years I still smoked, I still drank now and again, and I, you know, and I still, but God took it away, everything. And sometimes we as Christians feel like we're going to come to the Lord and we're going to change overnight, you know. But it doesn't happen like that always. For some, it can be instant deliverance from everything. But I want to say to you, whatever you're struggling with, God knows. And you know what? I was inspired when I walked into a friend's house one day, and she was sitting with a Bible, and she was sitting with a cigarette, and she was sitting with wine, but she was sitting with a Bible. And I thought, your Lord, and I looked at it like that, and I thought, oh, is that supposed, you know? But I felt how I felt about it was that sure, okay, she's of God on her terms, but anyway, but you know now she don't do that anymore. But I have seen how the two of us have grown together, from smoking and quoting scriptures to everything. But God is a God of miracles. You know, when I look back now and I see the hurt and the pain and the days when I screamed out to the Lord, when it felt raw, when it felt I was hurting, you know, when you're hurting so badly, you hurt that it physically hurt you, you know, and you feel the physical pain, and those are the days when you really feel like God is not there. Those are the days when God never leave you. You know, we sometimes move away from it, but you know what? Yeah, I just want to encourage you. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all the other things will be added onto you. And sometimes not overnight and not in our time, but at the right time. If I stand back now and I look at my journey, even with God, and I look at this and I think, yo, um, how God has carried me, how God has brought me through divorces, not one divorce, through divorces, through hurt, through a very
Mm.
violent marriage, huh? through a marriage where my husband made one of my friends pregnant, yeah, and so I know that pain too of infidelity. I know that pain of what it is to lose your soulmate, that you said no, you're gonna stick with this man. And
Sure.
then I married a man that was abusive, and sure, a week into our marriage, he threw me with a plate of food, and I was serving the Lord, and I was going to. That's where I know those sisters you had on air, more the twins. We were serving
Mm.
together at Bayview Christian Fellowship at the time, and you know what was amazing was that. But anyway, so then I went through this abusive marriage, and many things in life. But you know what? I want to encourage you, and I want to say to you, woman, rise up, rise up. Depression, bipolar, that's me. You know, Marco. You know, sometimes I think people don't know that I
Sure.
even live with bipolar, huh? Um, and so sometimes people say, Caroline, you're so busy, you're always busy. And I say, well, my bipolar is a good thing. Sometimes good, mostly good, sometimes bad when I get depressed and burnt out. But
Sure.
but because of that, I have a bit of ADHD. So that's another thing I can speak about, you know. But don't
Yeah.
sit there and wallow and you know what? I know it's not easy. I know what it's like laying in bed not wanting to get out of bed. I know what it's like not wanting to face the day. I know what it's like, and I wish you can see there's a cut there. Yeah. I know what it's like to be down there when you don't want to live, when you Yeah, yeah. Is it there? Yes, there's my cut. I know what that's like
Mm,
when you don't want to live anymore. Um, but God is faithful. Your God is faithful. I want to encourage you. I've overcome so much. I'm victorious. I'm an overcomer. I'm not a survivor. I'm an overcomer.
yeah.
Thank you,
It
Marco.
is it is the reason why I called tonight's episode Overcomer. Could have called it many things, but when I look at you,
Um,
I look at the life of an overcomer. And just maybe the final words to you in this regard. Um, you've spoken to the victim, you've spoken to those who've gone through the difficult experiences. Maybe just in brief, you want to speak to the support structure, those who are there, and maybe some of us that maybe don't see what others are going through. There's always telltale signs, there's always something that we can look out for, or the things that we disregard when somebody's calling out for help. Maybe you
yes.
just want to speak to some of us that maybe don't see what others are going through and how we
Mm.
can support those who are the victims.
I always say Marco, so believer, so when you want to really listen, sometimes it's the things that people don't say. And sometimes when people stay away, sometimes when they go quiet, a family member, friend, and especially now with COVID, remember we've been in isolation. Everybody is just isolating themselves. But a message, a call, hi, how you doing? Read between the lines, and when someone has gone off the grid, like I call it, call them up, send them a message, check up on them. And when someone disclose, tell them, I believe you, I believe you, I hear you, I'm so sorry, your secret is safe with me. um, Words like that. And I also want to say to whoever's listening, call out bad behavior, call out abuse, call out for men, call out catcalling, call out sexist jokes, call out unwelcome behavior, call out inappropriate comments. And because we know it
Yeah,
even happens in the church, call out what shouldn't be there, but be there for for that person, men or women, even men, Marco. I often say men hate speaking about their feelings. So even for me, I don't have I don't have the spaces that you have, Marco. So
mm,
when you as men are in spaces with other men, encourage other men to hug, to speak. Brother, how you, listen attentively, and also listen to the things that is not said. Huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
And people can obviously find you as well at the Callas Foundation, was we're doing
Yes,
very, very well. They know how keeping company with the UN these days, just and
yes.
magistrates. But if you want to reach out, how do they find you, especially on
Um,
social media?
okay. On social media, Callas Community Projects, or look for Callas Foundation. And then also, yes, on social media, Callas Foundation or Callas Community Projects. Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, that's how they can get hold of you. And those who want to reach you personally can go through those platforms as well. And
Yeah.
as somebody want to say, like I said in the beginning, you're one of my favorite ladies on God's green earth. And
Mm.
now I get to put this title, Champion Caroline, which you are, and
Thank you,
continue to
Marco.
champion the for the rights of women, and also to advocate for their struggles as well. You're doing a fantastic job. And when I look at you and you tell us about being bipolar and you tell us about the ADHD and all of these things, I don't see that. I see Caroline. I see the woman that's doing phenomenal work. A lady that some people would say was broken. I say you were only bent. You were never broken. And
Yes.
you're doing fantastically well. And God bless you. God bless you for who you are, and thank you
I
for what
receive
you are
that.
doing. And I enjoyed tonight. I'm pretty sure that a lot of people enjoyed listening to your story. But now I always do this as a hashtag now to live the life. And when we've learned something, now we go on to live that life and be an
Yes.
example. So thank you
Amen.
for being my guest tonight in studio.
Yes. Thank you,
And
Marco.
I know we're going to have many more conversations.
Yes.
So God
Thank you.
bless you.
Thank you for
Cheers,
having me,
Caroline.
Marco. God bless you too. Okay. Bye bye.
It was my pleasure. Cheers. Bye bye. So that was Caroline Peters, and what a phenomenal lady. And I trust that you enjoyed tonight's episode of Life Matters with Marco Jacobs. We get to do this on a Tuesday to talk about life matters because life truly matters and your life matters. So, with that, I'm saying goodbye to you till the very, very next time. Thank you for being tuned in to Life Matters with Marco Jacobs.